Hello, 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 and happy Monday, everybody. I hope that you are well and had an amazing day and a phenomenal weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank all of you who are repeat viewers. Today, I want to discuss something that was very interesting. It caught my eye, and I said, well, let's have some conversations to discuss it because I know that a lot of tenants um, have gone through this type of situation in many jurisdictions across the country. And so, what we are discussing today, true story, it really happened. It happened too frequently, it happened to too many tenants, and people are really impacted by things that landlords are doing. And so, today, if you had an opportunity to check out the description. We are talking about the landlord who was arrested for demanding sex in lieu of rental payments. And so I'm not sure what would make someone think that it's okay to demand it. I mean, to ask, hmm, maybe if they're interested in pursuing each other in a relationship or something, but to demand it because rent payments have not been made, I think that's crossing the line. What do you think? So we're going to get into the discussion today. Before I do, let me just give a brief introduction of who I am for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time. Thank you so much for being here today. I am Karissa Span, the landlord and tenant coach. I do these lives each and every week on my social media platform to bring awareness to landlords as well as tenants. So if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, hit that like button if you're watching on Facebook, like the page if you are watching on YouTube. Please click that subscribe button. And I just want to make sure that I'm sharing information that is applicable for most of my viewers. And so if this is your first time tuning in, please let me know where you tuning in from. We have viewers who are on the East Coast. We have viewers who are Midwest. And so certainly I want to make sure that I'm providing information that is applicable for you. All right. As a landlord and tenant expert, I have been in the industry for well over 28 years in the capacity of a real estate agent, a property manager, a housing inspector, an adjunct professor who actually still teaches property management for one of the local universities in my area. And so I don't profess to know everything, and the information that I share is definitely not legal advice, but I do give information that are basically the industry's best practices for landlords as well as for tenants. And so it is important to understand that in this day and age of which we are living in, that landlords are required to adhere to laws that governs how they do business. Okay? Landlords are not exempt. Okay? Even in the pandemic, which we are still in, landlords are still governed by laws. And so this subject matter that I've shared in my description is it's something that it's really heartbreaking because I've had individuals who I know personally who have been in situations where they didn't have the rent and the landlord demanded that they paid by way of sexual favors. And if they did not, then that landlord did actually give them a notice to vacate or threaten that they would get a notice to vacate. And it's really a scary situation to find yourself in if you are a tenant and you have a landlord that is basically operating their business, or whether they're managing someone else's property or they flat out own it themselves. It's a poor business practice. And so I want to bring awareness so that people are aware that it is simply not okay. So please share this, okay? Share this broadcast today. So we're going to get into it. But before I do, I just want to say that if you have comments and if you have questions, go ahead and drop it in the comment section and I will respond to them accordingly. All right. And so again, if this is your first time tuning in, please let me know where you are watching from. Okay. I want to make sure that I'm addressing all of your needs, answering all of your questions. All right. Hello, Kimberly Parker. Thank you so much for tuning in, beautiful, from South Carolina. Hey, partner, how are you, Keith Childs? I got to get you back on the show, Keith, because Keith, I know you have a lot of information that many of my viewers can use. So let's schedule some time. Let's chat offline, Keith, so that we can get you into the people homes and on their devices so they can stay connected with you and what you're doing. Hello, Pete. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right. Hello, the technician. You said, what about the other way around? It happened before. You know what? That's a good question. And so I'm going to get into that today. Great question. Thank you so much for that. All right. So we are talking about the landlord who demanded sex in exchange for or in lieu of the tenant paying rent because obviously the rent was not paid. Okay. So we know that we're still in the pandemic. And we know, many of us know that the eviction moratorium is still in place. And someone is probably asking, well, Karissa, what the heck is an eviction moratorium? Well, that means that for people who are renting property, all right, if they are not able to pay their rent because we are still in the pandemic, there's a national eviction moratorium in place, which provides coverage and protection so that landlords cannot evict tenants who are delinquent on their rent payment. So it basically provides protection for the tenants. And I think it's really important for people to understand because I've heard arguments on both sides of the aisle. But I've heard arguments that it's not fair to landlords, that tenants cannot be evicted during this time. Well, I'm kind of 50-50 on the fence with it because I'm also a landlord. I also manage property. I have tenants, but I also have a heart for the tenants that I serve. Okay. Now, because the pandemic is a health pandemic, we know that COVID-19 is real. All right. A lot of people, if they have not had family members or loved ones who have passed away because of COVID-19, then probably have heard that someone has lost relatives. Me personally, I've lost 5 loved ones, okay, just last year alone. The first year that the pandemic broke out, 1 year, I lost 5 loved ones due to COVID-19. So I know that it's really real. I know that it really impacts a lot of people. So if landlords were able to evict tenants, and let's just say something happens and they end up getting this COVID-19, they end up getting the virus, something happens and they die, that landlord can be held responsible. That's true. Landlords can be fined. Check it out. 200,000, 250,000. And if it's a business or a corporation, they can be fined up to $500,000 if a tenant has been displaced, becomes homeless, contracts this virus, gets seriously ill, and die. So there are a lot of moving parts behind why landlords are prohibited from evicting tenants. They don't want to see people homeless. They're not saying that this eviction moratorium is to penalize landlords, but because it is a health pandemic, it's a health emergency, it's a global health emergency. They're trying to really control the spread of the virus. And so certainly people who are homeless, that puts them in jeopardy of being around others or maybe in shelters or not having anywhere to go. All right. So I just wanted to share that information because I don't think that a lot of people really look at it from a larger perspective. So I just wanted to give some information on the backdrop of why this eviction moratorium is in place. And in some jurisdictions, the eviction moratorium has been extended. Okay, that means that, for instance, the CDC extended the eviction moratorium through the end of March. In some jurisdictions, it's been extended beyond March. Now, landlords have asked me, well, Karissa, what do I do if I do not qualify to get assistance and my tenant is not paying rent? Because here's the thing. A lot of landlords don't know where to go to get money to assist them with paying their mortgage if they're not able to pay it. Hello, Shell. Thank you so much for tuning in. And unfortunately, it has happened. But then again, there are a lot of landlords who are able to get assistance with their mortgage payments. Many have been able to, and even through me sharing information, have been very successful with getting government assistance for tenants who are not paying their rent because money is available. Money will continue to be available for a lot of places, a lot of jurisdictions, states, and cities. So if you or someone you know is behind on your rent, you're delinquent, and it's because of COVID. Maybe you've lost your hours or you lost your job. Please do some research and find out where money is, because there's money available. There are grants available. There is so much money available. And this story is totally not related to my subject today, but there is so much money available. I saw in the news a couple of weeks ago where this young lady got thousands of dollars in grant money. And she ended up going to jail because she went on this lavish shopping spree. I mean, she was just buying it up. And I was like, well, there are so many people who don't have money. They don't have access to it. So there is money available, even if it's just a grant. Do some research, find out where to get the money from, because owners are getting money, tenants are getting money, people are getting money to start new businesses, startups. There is a lot of money in the community. So long story short, get the money so that as a tenant, you would not find yourself in a place where you're worried about whether or not your landlord is going to evict you, because once the eviction moratorium is over, landlords will be able to take tenants to court to evict them. All right. And so I've said it and I'll say it again, that there will be a storm of evictions coming. It's coming. It's coming. A storm of evictions. It's coming. All right. All right. So Shell, your comment says, I thought it was the whole state of Maryland until August 31st. Michelle, if that is an extension that has recently happened, I haven't checked, but I will definitely confirm. So thank you for sharing that information today. All right. And so again, guys, if you have questions, if you have comments, go ahead and drop it in the comment section. So the first thing that I do want to say about this story that I read, true story, the landlord is arrested, all right, for allegedly demanding sex because a tenant, for whatever reason, just didn't pay the rent. Now, I don't know the specifics on the story, but I do know that a lot of these stories have come up, all right? So the first thing is this. Rent, according to the terms of the rental lease agreement, is to be paid by usually a money order, cashier's check, whatever the method of payment has been set up or has been arranged. I haven't seen a lease anywhere, and I've been doing this for at least 28 years, okay? I haven't seen a legal lease for a rental property where a tenant is to pay their rent for or by way of sex. Now, I do know, I'm not naive, okay? I'm not green, guys. I do know that stuff happens and people do things. It's their business, but it is not a landlord's. It's in the best interest of the landlord to not demand it, okay? And so in that situation, hello, Tawana. Thank you so much for tuning in. In this situation, guys, this landlord requested it not with just one tenant, but with multiple tenants, demanded, didn't ask for it, didn't politely, try to date the individual, but they demanded that the tenants, okay, multiple tenants, pay their rent. This landlord told the tenant, listen, if you get with me, I'm just paraphrasing. I don't know the exact verbiage. I don't know exactly what was said because I wasn't there. All right. I'm not the landlord, and it surely didn't happen to me. Okay. But I can only imagine that the landlord was saying, maybe to the tenants, like, listen, get with me, let's get together. And, you don't have to pay your rent or whatever. Listen, I know that people do something, sometimes they do something strange, for a piece of change. I get it. I get it. But in this situation, this landlord learned a costly mistake and a valuable lesson. You cannot demand it. All right. It is absolutely not okay. It's not okay. Hello, Pastor Bellows. Happy Monday. It is sad. It is unfortunate, but it happened. All right. It is definitely not okay. And I'm actually happy to see that we're making an example out of people who do that, which is why I'm sharing this story today. But it is what it is. Now, in some circumstances and situations, it's okay if you're going to exchange services for something else. But in this case, with the landlord and the tenant, and for the landlord to demand it, it's not okay. It's not okay, not at all. Thank you so much for tuning in, Pastor Bellows. Um, Pete, you said, yeah, I just said it. I said it. But let's go on because I don't want to, hold the people too long. So the first thing is this. All right, there is a term for what has happened. All right. So let me just put that up on the screen. All right. So when you are requesting a favor for a favor, okay, this is what it's called. Quid pro quo. All right. Now, in many cases, this is acceptable. All right. Where, for instance, I'm going to use you, Pete or Keith, because, we're close. So in exchange for my services, my coaching services, and instead of you charging me, you provide a service. Maybe you do a training for one of my upcoming webinars. That's a favor for a favor. All right. In that case, and in that scenario, or in that type of situation, certainly that is okay. But when it comes to a landlord, all right. So now let me go back because there was a question on the floor, and I just definitely want to make sure that I'm answering all of your questions. All right. So I'm gonna put it back up on the screen. All right. What if it's the other way around? And that's a great question because listen, I've had tenants. I've had tenants that I have witnessed, didn't ask me personally, but I have had tenants who made a proposition or asked for services with my maintenance contractors, right? So maintenance workers, they're in the rental property, and the tenants, now the tenant was responsible for the tenant damage. So they knew that they were going to pay. All right. So the tenants asked the contractors, asked the maintenance workers to not report it and promise that, okay, well, if you don't report it, so I am not charged, I'll give you a little something, something. It happens. Now, what is the best way to handle that? I would say, which is the philosophy I live by, I share it each and every week. If you treat it like a business, it will pay you like a business. If you treat it like a hobby, it will pay you like a hobby. So here's the thing. When you're in the position, okay, let me just speak to landlords and housing providers. When you are in the position, all right, and you have a tenant who asks to give you sex in exchange for rent payments. Now, I don't know if your property is paid for. I don't know if you're paying a mortgage on it. I don't know if you have utility bills that you have to pay. I don't know if you have taxes or other bills pertaining to your rental property business. But the one thing that I do know is that you cannot pay the gas, electric, the water, the oil, the mortgage, the taxes, anything. You can't pay that with sex. All right. So I would just caution you, if you're a landlord and if you're doing it, at some point it may catch up with you. So learn a lesson from this landlord's mistake because this landlord has been arrested. So here's the thing, because at some point, tenants will get tired. Okay. Tenants will become overwhelmed and frustrated with giving services. All right. And at some point, let's just say it's been going on for years because I know that stuff happens, right? Like I said, I've been doing this for a while. I'm not new to this. I am true to this. So there are things and there are situations that are really going on. And a lot of people have not brought it to the table because they have just been dealing with it. True story. Pete, I see your comment. You said I wasn't going to say anything, but I had a tenant come on to me today, but I think she was high. Listen, Pete, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. And it happens so frequently to the point that I think that for so many people, it's just normal. It's just like the normal thing to do. And maybe, sometimes you just don't know unless you put it out there. And so whatever. Okay. So, but in any event, hey, Lynette, thank you so much for tuning in from Charlotte, North Carolina. North Carolina is in the building. All right. So in a situation, guys, where Lynette, I'm sorry, did I hear the word sex? Yes. We're talking about landlords as well as tenants who are requesting to use sex as a payment for rent or whatever. All right. Or to not take care of repairs in exchange of payment that's due. All right. Yes. Real talk. Sex. That's what we're talking about today. So in situations where, let me see your comment. Hey, Kenyatta, like you always treat it like a business. If not, you would never get paid. Absolutely. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Because there are situations that people have been dealing with. And I had a landlord who contacted me about a week ago. So I was on my way to my appointment. I was going to get my lashes done. Y'all probably can't see my lashes now because I got allergies and I rubbed my lashes completely off, totally off topic. But anyway, I was on my way to my appointment and I usually don't answer my personal phone after a certain time. I answered the phone because I realized that it was one of my landlord clients calling me. So I went against my better judgment. I answered the phone and to my surprise, oh my God, that telephone call almost took me out of here. Okay. So he admitted to me, and I'm glad that he was able to talk to me because I was able to give him advice, although it was not legal advice. And no information that I share is legal advice, but it's just best industry practice. So he said to me, Karissa, listen, I have a tenant who's in Section 8. She's in the Housing Choice Voucher Program, formerly known as Section 8. And in the Section 8 voucher program, the tenant's rent is always it's subsidized. So that means that their rent is always a portion of their income. It's usually 30%, not more than 30% of their income, right? So if a tenant doesn't have much income, maybe they have fixed income, or they may work part-time. Maybe they don't work at all. They're on Social Security, TANF or whatever, right? Their rent is subsidized. So they may pay a portion and the government will primarily pay the bulk of it, but it just varies depending on the income, and it could go up, it can go down. So the more income the family make, the more rent they'll pay. So in this situation, this landlord's tenant obviously was previously not paying a lot for rent. Okay. Their portion changed. The tenant was paying an extra amount to live in a property. Okay, so let's just say that the approved rent from the program was $3,400. This landlord wanted $3,500, so the tenant was paying an extra $100 under the table to this landlord. So that's just a hypothetical. It's not the exact amount, but I'm just painting a picture so that you can follow and understand. All right, so this tenant had been paying this extra money all this time. Now, all of a sudden, this tenant, she got a job and her rent went from zero, because according to the program was paying all of the rent. Her portion was zero, goose egg, nada, zip, right? So she got a job. Her rent portion went up to $1,400. All right. So now she's responsible by the program to pay $400 a month. So that meant that the tenant's portion increased and the agency's portion decreased. All right. So this tenant, now that her rent has legally increased from zero to $400, she could not afford to make that extra $100 payment that she was making. All right. So she told the landlord, listen, I can't pay it. And so he called me frustrated and upset, asking, well, Karissa, what can I do? Can I increase the rent? And I did apologize. And I told him, I said, listen, you can't increase the rent because we're in eviction moratorium, and landlords are prohibited. Landlords cannot increase the rent during this eviction moratorium. Okay. And even if we were not in the eviction moratorium in the District of Columbia, the DC Housing Authority had already told all landlords that due to the budget, that landlords would not be getting an increase. So that answer was just flat out no. All right. So this landlord was highly upset. He was in his feelings because now he was getting less money, right? So remember, the agency was paying all of it and the tenant was paying an extra $100. So because the tenant's rent legally increased by $400, she just couldn't afford it. So he ended up taking a loss, and now he wants to get rid of her. And I told him, I said, listen, you just can't do it. Even when the eviction moratorium is over, you still cannot, you can't put her out. He was like, well, what can I do? Can I contact her worker? So I asked him, I said, I want you to take a minute. I want you to think about what you're saying right now. I said, I think I just heard you tell me that you've been accepting payment under the table, which is a violation of the program in and of itself. And just in case you didn't know, you could be kicked out of the program as a landlord. So I got quiet. I drank my little drinky drink. He was quiet. And he finally responded. He said, "So you tell me that there's nothing I can do?" Absolutely not. It happens. Absolutely. I definitely agree with you, Pete, on that integrity. Some people just they don't have integral, they don't have an integral foundation. All right. So we're talking about the landlord who expected or demanded, not expected, but demanded that tenants pay for rent by way of sex. All right. Because obviously, maybe their income, something happened, they couldn't afford the rent, and the landlord demanded it, not once, not twice, but multiple times by different tenants. All right. The second thing is that it's illegal. All right. And if a tenant is not able to pay their rent, okay, a landlord only option is to take that tenant to court. Landlords cannot go in and change locks. Landlords cannot just put people out. I don't care if the tenant is a tenant that gets on your last nerves. And we know sometimes we're human, right? I don't even have to go down that road. Sometimes people are going to be people. Sometimes people have bad days. Landlords, tenants, doesn't matter. We're all human, right? So the biggest thing for me is respect, respecting each other, respecting the boundaries, respecting that landlord and tenant relationship. If it's not working, you know what? It is okay to take a couple of steps back. All right. But at the end of the day, landlords are still governed by the law. Landlords cannot just go in and put tenants' stuff out on the street, even if they've not paid rent. And like I said last week, even if repairs are due or repairs are needed, landlords are still required to make the repairs. Is it fair? Is it unfortunate? You can call it whatever you like. All I know is the law says that landlords cannot evict tenants. Okay. So this landlord threatened that if the tenants did not have sex, that they were going to be evicted. Well, the courts are not even open in many places, and especially not to hear cases for delinquent rent. Now, tenants who are maybe they have some sort of lease violations in certain jurisdictions, I do know that courts are open to hear those type of cases. But for non-payment of rent, it's not happening. All right. So if you are a tenant, let me speak to the tenant because I've been speaking primarily to the landlords. Y'all know I like to share information for both sides of the aisle. All right. Tenants, if you are not able to pay rent, your landlord cannot pressure you into having sex. Your landlord cannot pressure you into doing anything. Okay. If you're not paying your rent, the only thing that your landlord can do legally is take you to court. Okay. So let me just make that extra clear because I don't think people really understand what's happening here, because a lot of times stuff just happens and people are not aware of what is really going on. All right, so that's the second thing. All right, so let me take a look at your questions here. Hey Jackie, thank you so much for tuning in. You said first I would tape him, then I would sue. That is a good point, Jackie. This is good information. So please take note. All right, take note of this. If you All right, guys. Sorry about that. I'm back. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Um, that's a good point, Jackie. So let me bring your comment back up on the screen. You said that you would tape them. That is a good point. And that's something that I would definitely recommend. Like I said, I would recommend that for landlords as well as tenants, because I've had situations where um, tenants who were a little irate, disrespectful, because it happens. Like I said, people are going to be human. People are going to be who they are, right? And everybody don't treat everybody with respect. Okay. But yeah, that's definitely a good point. Record it, whether it's just audio, whether it's video, record it. All right. Because it is absolutely okay. We know that it's not what we know is what we can prove. All right. So let me just echo that. Hey, Kenny, thank you so much for tuning in. Hello, Dr. Shante. Yes, Pete, I am back. Pete, I don't know if I would wear a body cam, but if I realize that we don't do the same thing. So, if you wear a body cam, if you feel like that's what you have to do, then hey, by all means, help yourself. But definitely, if you feel unsafe, if you feel intimidated, if you feel threatened, if you feel like you're being set up for something bad or negative to happen, then definitely protect you and record it. All right. The third and the final point is this: contact local authority for help. All right. So if you are a landlord and you feel like you have a tenant that is trying to control you or to control the situation, reach out to the local authority to get some help. Okay. I realize that some landlords and housing providers are not in a position where they can afford an attorney. All right. I get it. Everybody just simply can't do it. And so I want people to understand that there are laws in place to protect landlords as well as tenants. And so if you feel like whether it's you as a landlord or the tenant, if you feel like you are in a situation and it's not positive, it's not professional, tenants can reach out to the local authority for help. Landlords can reach out to the local authority for help. And if you are in a situation where you feel like maybe you need a mediator to jump in, to get involved, to help out with the situation, then by all means, please do that. Some of you may recall I did a Facebook Live in last year, and I shared how I forgot which state it was. It was somewhere up north, but there was a dispute between a landlord and a tenant, and it ended up violent. And the landlord died because the tenant killed him. So if you are in a situation and it's not healthy, it's not positive, it's not productive, by all means, go ahead and tap out, withdraw, because at the end of the day, life is so precious. All right. It's mind blowing to me when people, landlords and tenants, they get into full arguments, they want to fight. Listen, for me, it's just not that serious because I treat it like a business. I treat it like a business and I expect for it to pay me like a business. I don't wear my feelings on my sleeve. Now, sometimes there are some exceptions to the rule because, like I said, we're human, right? I shared true story. I shared a situation where shortly after my father passed away, instead of taking time off, I still went into the office. I still tried to be the superwoman of the community because it was, in my eyes, I felt like I had a lot to do in the office, and being the CEO, it was my responsibility to be there. And so, true story, situation happened in the office. I ended up having the tenant barred. She wouldn't leave, and it was just ugly. And that was just not the day for me, right? So typically, I'm pleasant, I'm calm, I'm respectful, I'm the professional. I teach people how to do this, but that was just not the day for me, and I snapped on the tenant. I felt like, okay, well, at that moment, because I was still in my feelings, I'm like, okay, well, it's justified because this tenant is always disrespectful. She's always cussing. It's always something negative. It's like this person woke up on the wrong side of the bed every day to make somebody's life a living hell. And she picked the right day, and I just snapped in response. So it just didn't go well. I didn't feel good about it because I don't operate like that. Right. That just didn't sit well with me. So I called the tenant from my personal cell phone to apologize, and that didn't even help. I was like, okay, well, I've apologized. It's nothing more that I could do, because we can't go back in time. We can't change the things that we say or do, which is why I say treat it like a business. Do not wear your emotions on your sleeve. All right. Govern yourselves accordingly. If you need help, get help. If you are a landlord and you're self-managing all of your rental properties and you have tenants who are not respecting you, maybe consider getting a third person to come in, right? So whether it's a property manager, you get a colleague, a family member, someone that you know, to come in and just take the rough edges off that bad situation, because it's a business. All right. So Pete, I like your comment. You says you keep poking the hornet's nest, you're going to get stung. I promise you that's the truth. I promise you that is so true, Pete, because I have this thing where, I say, you keep poking the bear long enough, the bear is going to respond. And you never know what's going to happen when you open a door, whether it's an argument, whether it's a debate, you know, you never know what's going to be on the other side of that door. So treat it like a business, guys. So I just wanted to share this information and hopefully prevent others from going through these type of situations, because landlords, listen, tenants are recording, tenants are reporting stuff. And so what used to happen back in the day, or what may have been acceptable, and although it's not ethical, although it's not professional, it's not moral, although these things may have happened in the past, it's not okay. All right. And at some point, if you are consistently doing things that are not okay, that are not legal, even if you think it is, all right, it's simply not. Some of my clients, I have clients who are they're from other countries. And in those countries, maybe the practices are a little different there. And it may be okay. Well, here, the law is what it is. There are no exceptions to the rule. All right. Money, I know sometimes money make people feel like they got a lot more power, but the laws are what they are. Okay. And so if tenants are complaining, there are laws in place that protects tenants. So during the month of April, all right, that's Fair Housing Month. I'll be sharing information, fair housing laws, fair housing tips. And so please make sure y'all are tuned in the month of April. If you don't tune in ever again, April, the entire month of April, I do my lives on my social media platforms every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please make sure you are connected, that you're tapped in, because I'm sharing information. I will be going over prohibited practices to make sure that people understand that laws are in place to protect tenants. And a lot of tenants, I promise you, y'all might be surprised with the things that I'm going to share with you, because I know that a lot of people don't know that what some landlords are doing, they're simply not okay. So my time is up, and I thank you for yours. Hope that you will share this information. Hope that you like my Facebook page. Hope that you have subscribed to my YouTube channel. This is what I do each and every Monday right here on my social media platform. I'm on Facebook and I'm also on YouTube. If you have comments, if you have questions, please go ahead and drop it in the comment section. Stay tuned, stay connected, because I promise to always give you information. And guys, again, thank you for watching. I'm Karissa, the Landlord and Tenant Coach. Bye for now.